Hello friends, let's continue the discussion of representations of convolution encoder. I hope you already have gone through first two lectures of convolution encoder. In this particular class, we are going to see the representations of convolution encoder with numerical, and also we will be visiting a very important concept in the encoding, that is D-free, which is actually related to the error correcting ability of your convolutional encoder. So in the last video we started discussion on representations of convolutional encoder. So let's continue with that particular topic. Just a quick revision: you have 1/2 convolution encoder. This encoder we have taken for example, and we have gone through two types of representations. One is state diagram and second is code tree representation. So the convention is, if you receive 0 in a particular state, you show the transition by a solid line, and if you receive 1 in a particular state as an input, you show the transition with the dotted line. So this particular encoder has two states, S0 and S1, and these are the transitions which are shown that completes the state diagram of this encoder. And then we have also seen the concept of code tree representation, where again initial point is A shown in this particular diagram, which can be mapped to state S0, and now when you receive 0 0, when you receive 0 as an input, your output is 0 0, and you are following the path of upper branch, and when you receive 1 as the input, then you follow the lower branch. So this particular code tree representation retains the notion of time, which is not retained with the help of state diagram. That is the advantage of this tree, but the disadvantage is it's an expanding structure both in horizontal as well as in vertical direction. But if you look at the state diagram, it is the most compact representation, but obviously the disadvantage is there is no time notion present in the state diagram. So whenever you are in a particular state, you don't know how many bits you have received so far. So let's continue this discussion and see the third representation. This representation is called trellis. The meaning of trellis is tree-like structure, right? So it's similar to your code tree, but the expansion of trellis takes place only in the horizontal direction, not in the vertical direction. So coming back to the convolution encoder, which we are discussing, 1/2 encoder, this is the state diagram, and now this diagram converts the state diagram into trellis representation. So what is the trellis structure? Now again we have two states, S0 and S1. These states we are repeating at every time instance, and in the beginning you start with state S0. So whenever you receive 0, you remain in S0 and your output is 0 0. Now whenever you receive 0, it's a solid line transition. So from S0 again we go to S0 and your output is 0 0. And when you receive 1, you move to S1, which is the dotted transition, and your output is 1 1. So from S0 we move to S1. We don't show movement in this direction because we are going to move to S1 in the next clock cycle. So the trellis will keep on expanding in the horizontal direction. So with every clock the trellis will keep on moving towards right. So S0 is the initial state. After first clock it will go to S1, so the second stage, and after one more clock you will be in the next state. So again there are two possibilities: either I am receiving 0 when I am in S0, so I go to S0, or I go to S1. So assuming that you receive 0 and you are in S0, now again you are in this state. Again two possibilities: S0 to S0 or S0 to S1, right? And if you are in S1 right now at this place, then there are two possibilities. If you receive 0, you go to S0, your output is 0 1, which is this solid transition, and if you receive 1, then you remain in S1, your output is 1 0, which is indicated by the dotted line. So this dotted line indicates you are moving from S1 to S1, and this will keep on continuing. This is the trellis representation. Again you see it is similar to tree, but it's expanding only in the horizontal direction, but it retains the advantage of tree structure. What is the advantage? It retains the time notion. So whenever you are at this level, I know that I have received 1 bit so far. If you are at this level, then you will understand you have received 2 bits so far. So the time notion is retained again in the trellis structure. So let's now take an example with 2 different encoders. So again I am referring to this particular encoder, and now you will actually encode the message with the help of all the 3 representations. So let the message will be 1 1. We will assume that you are receiving message 1 1, and now you want encoded output. You want code word out of convolution encoder, and we will try to generate the code word with all the 3 representations. So let's first focus on state diagram representation. Now the most important sentence on this slide is, do not forget to pad zeros to original message. And how many zeros you are padding? The number of zeros is constraint length -1. Now we have discussed already what is the constraint length of this encoder. It is 2. 2 times your input is affecting the output. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So you will pad 1 0 to the message. What was the necessity of the 0? Just to complete this entire transition. The last message, when it comes here, in the next block it will go to the output, and at that time I need a 0 here to complete the operation of the circuit. So your modified message will be 1 1 0. Now if you go with the state diagram, I am trying to encode 1 1 0. Now you are in S0, you receive 1, so you go to S1, your output is 1 1. Now you move to S1, now the next bit received is again 1, so you remain in S1, so your output is 1 0, and now the third bit is 0. So when you receive 0, you move from S1 to S0, and your output is 0 1. So what is the total output? 1 1 1 0 0 1. So your output is 1 1 1 0 and 0 1. Right? Now let's verify this output with the code tree concept. This is the tree representation of the given encoder. Now I receive first 1. So 1 is the lower branch. So when I move in the lower branch, I reach to this state, which is state B, or in our diagram the state could be S1. So you move to this point, and in the transition your output is 1 1. Now you are already at this point and you receive the next bit. Your next bit is 1. So again the lower branch. So your output is 1 0. Now you come here and the last bit is 0. So 0 means upward branch, upper branch. So your output is 0 1, and that is the end of the message. So you got output is 1 1 1 0 and 0 1, which will match with this particular output. So this is how, using any of the representations, you can actually code the message. So your encoded output is 1 1 1 0 0 1, or in terms of your coding theory, we call this as code word. So your code word is 1 1 1 0 and 0 1. Let's verify with trellis structure. This is the trellis, which we already know. Now what is the first message bit we receive? 1. So 1 is this path from S0 to S1, dotted path. So I come here, my output is 1 1. What is the next bit? 1 again. So again the dotted path. So 1 1 1 0, and the third bit we are encoding this message. So third bit is 0. So 0 is the solid transition. So it is 0 1. So what is the again output? 1 1 1 0 and 0 1. So 1 1 1 0 and 0 1. So using all the 3 representations, we have encoded the message, which is 1 1, and we got this particular output. This is the way to encode any of the message. Just see the transition, move to the next state, and see what is the output during the transition. Now, very important point here, the output length. What is the length of your output? Right now you have 2 bits of message, original message, and your length of the output is 6 bits, right? In the first introductory lecture, we have seen the output length is given by n into L plus M, where n is number of adders, capital L is length of the message, and capital M is number of flip-flops. So if you refer this case, your number of flip-flops is 1, so M is 1. L is actually length of message, which is 1 1, original length, which is 2, so 2 plus 1, and your adder is 1 in this case, so it is actually 3, and we are getting output length 6. So is there something wrong in the equation? Right? So absolutely no, your doubt is valid. But whenever we take output from the encoder, the important point is we implicitly assume the adder. So if I'm getting this particular output, I assume that there is an encoder, there is an adder here. At the output of this encoder you have an adder, and one input of the adder is permanently grounded, which is 0. So that adder is implicitly assumed in any of the encoders. So in simple words, number of outputs you can take as number of adders, right? So if we assume that how many outputs we have, 2 outputs, so this equation is 2 into 2 plus 1, which is 6, which will match with our output, right? So this was a tricky part, so I have explained this using the concept of implicit adder. So let's move ahead. Now we are going to take one more example. So we will refer now this particular convolutional encoder, right? Again we are looking at this, and we have completed the state diagram and code tree part of this. So this is the convolutional encoder. The very first question we should ask is, what is the constraint length of this encoder? So the constraint length of this encoder is 3. So whenever I take a message, I am going to pad 2 zeros. It's written here. So if I take message again 1 1, then for encoding of this particular message with reference to this encoder, your message will be 1 1 0 0. You are padding 2 zeros. Again, why 2? 2 is constraint length minus 1. So the constraint length of this encoder is 3. So let's try to encode the message. This is my state diagram, and this is the trailees representation. What is the difference between the previous one and this one? The previous encoder had only 2 states. Now we have 4 states. I am representing state A as 0 0, B as 1 0, C is 0 1, and D is 1 1, just to have alignment with this particular state diagram. So this transition is 0 to 0, which is this state. Then when you receive 1 in A, I go to B with output 1 1 as a dotted line. So this dotted line indicates you've moved from A to B, which is a dotted line, right? So in the first clock cycle, or with the first bit, only A is active, and once you receive the bit, you have 2 transitions, A to A or A to B, right? Now at this place you have 2 states active. Now here onwards you can go from A to A, or you can move from A to B, or you can go from B to C and B to D. B to C is this transition, and B to D is this transition, right? And at this point all the 4 states are active now. Now you can go from A to A to B, then B to C, B to D, then you can go from C to B and C to A. C to B is a dotted transition because it is the transition after receiving 1, and C to A is a solid line transition because you go from C to A when you receive 0. And what is the output at that time? 1 1. Similarly, I can remain in D, or I can move from D to C. If I remain in D, it's a dotted transition because it's a transition of 1, and when I go from D to C, it's a solid transition. So D to D dotted transition, D to C is a solid transition, right? Now very important point, you can notice all the 4 states are active at which level? This is level number 3, or first time instance, this is second time instance, and this is third time instance. So at t equal to 3, your all the states are present. So what is 3? 3 is the constraint length of an encoder. So whenever your time event is equal to constraint length, that is in this case t equal to 3, 3 is the constraint length, you get all the 4 states coming in the trailees. Till this point, till that particular point, all the 4 states, they don't take part in the trailees, right? If you go to the previous diagram, then here you can see that in the first clock or first bit, only first state is active. From second onwards, both the states, they start contributing in the trailees. The reason is the constraint length of this particular encoder is 2. So at the second time instance, the 2 states are active. Similarly, the constraint length of this new encoder is 3. So at t equal to 3, that is third state, all the 4 stages will come into picture. All the 4 states will come into picture, which will actively take part in the trailees. So this is the trailees representation. Now I want to encode the message 1 1. Again, important point, pad 2 zeros, constraint length minus 1. So effectively I am encoding now 1 1 0 0. So I receive first bit as 1. So when I receive first bit as 1, I move from A to B because it's a dotted transition. So it is shown here, it's a dotted transition. So what is the output? 1 1. Now you are in B. Now you receive the second input. Second input is 1. So from B you have two transitions, this B to C and B to D, right? But you are receiving 1, so you will follow this dotted line. So you will move from B to D. So we will go from B to D. And what is the output from B to D? 0 1. Or you can refer here, if I go from B to D, my output is 0 1. Now you are in which state? Now we are in state D. Now the next bit which we will receive is 0. So you are in D and you receive 0. So from 0, from D I can go to D, or from D I can go to C, right? As I am receiving 0, I will follow this solid line. So I will move from D to C. And when I go from D to C, my output is 0 1, which is shown here. When I go from D to C, my output is 0 1. And now the last bit, 0. Now you are in state C. So in C, you receive the last bit 0. So when you receive the last bit 0, when you are in C, just refer the trailees. In C, if I receive 0, I go to A with the solid line transition and my output is 1 1. So the last bit, you move from C to A. And what is your output? 1 1. Right? So what is the total encoded output? Your message is 1 1. We added 2 zeros to it and my output is 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 1. This is the output which we got from trailees. Now if you want the output from state diagram, just check. You are in A0. You receive 1. When you receive 1, you move to B. Your output is 1 1. Now in B you again receive 1. So you move from B to D. Your output is 0 1. Now in D you receive 0, which is the third bit. You come to C. Your output is again 0 1. And then it is the final bit 0. So from C to A, your output is 1 1. So code word is 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 1. And the last representation is code tree representation. This is the code tree representation of given encoder. You can see that there are 8 states. This is instance 1, this is instance 2, and at the third instance A, B, C, D, all the 4 states they come in picture at instance 3, which is your constraint length. Now we will encode the message. My bit is 1, first bit, so it's the lower branch. So if I follow the lower branch, my output is 1 1. I reach to B. Again my next bit is 1. So again the lower branch. I go to D. My output is 0 1. Now next bit is 0. 0 is the upper branch. I go to C. My output is 0 1. And last is again 0. So again upper branch and you reach to A and your output is 1 1. In the diagram, it's by mistake the last transition shown is dark, which is on the lower side, but actually it is upper side. So lower side transition, upper side transition, and again upper side transition. So 1 1 0 1 0 1 and 1 1. That is your output. And how many bits are there in the output? There are 8 bits. That is the length of the code word. Why 8? Again coming back to the equation, n into L plus m. What is n? Number of adders. How many adders? 2 adders. So we have 2 here. Then capital L. What is capital L? Length of the message. So what is the length of the original message? When I substitute capital L, it is not the 0 padded length which we consider. We consider the original length. So which is 2, and plus 2. What is 2? Number of flip-flops. So how many flip-flops we have? 2 flip-flops. So what is the total length? 8, which will match to this. Right? So we have taken an example of 2 different encoders, and using the 3 representations, we have generated the code word. So I hope you have got this representation. So let's compare quickly the 3 representations. So if I have state diagram looping back to the same states, it's shown easily. It does not have time as the dimension. It is the most compact representation. Your tree is actually extended state diagram. Your disadvantages, we need to redraw the states. When we go with the state diagram, the biggest advantage is we don't have to redraw the states. Once there are 4 states, they are constant. But here I need to redraw. So definitely there is an expansion in the vertical as well as horizontal direction. But the advantage is the time notion is retained. Same with the trailees. It is basically a folded tree, right? You have 2 axes. On x axis you have time instances. On y axis you have all the possible states. Again the time notion is maintained in case of trailees. So that is a comparison slide. You just can refer the slide once again for comparison. Now let's move ahead and let's see a very interesting point. If you refer this convolution encoder, it has one input. If you refer this convolution encoder, it has one input. So there might be a notion that convolutional encoder can accept only one input at a time, but that is not true. We will be updating this knowledge of number of inputs in this particular video. Another important point is this is accepting one input and it is producing two outputs. So we say that there are two generating functions, or in terms of convolution we say that there are two impulse responses, one for the upper branch, one for the lower branch. So if you map it, you have one generating function which will map input to first output, and another generating function which will map input to the second output. So number of inputs into number of outputs will be total generating functions. Here number of input is 1, number of outputs are 2. So 1 into 2, total 2 generating functions. Now if we go to this particular encoder, now this is little bit tricky but very easy to understand. Now if you see how many inputs are there, so it's 2 inputs. So this encoder is accepting 2 inputs at a time. And how many outputs it is producing? 3 outputs. So what is the specification of the encoder? It is 2x3 convolutional encoder, 2 inputs and 3 outputs. Right, now how many total generating functions will be there? 2 inputs into 3 outputs. So 2 into 3 is 6. So which generating functions? Input 1 to output 1, input 1 to output 2, input 1 to output 3. So these are 3 generating functions. Input 2 to output 1, input 2 to output 2, and input 2 to output 3. 3 generating functions. So G11, first input, first output. G12, first input, second output. G13, first input, third output. G21, second input, first output. G22, second input, second output. And G23, second input and third output. So what is the first one? G11. So how I move from first input to first output? These outputs are taken for a flip-flops. So this output is after one delay, this output is after another delay, right? Similarly this output is after one delay, and this output is after another delay. Whenever it is shown the line coming out of the flip-flop like this, the convention is it is output of that particular flip-flop. Okay, so now if I go from first input to first output, this input has no direct connection to output, but this output receives 2 different inputs, right? This XOR gate has 2 different inputs. One is this, which is delay of 1, which I can write as a D, plus second delay, D square. So if I start moving from input 1 to output 1, input is not connected but the input is delayed, then that input is delayed again here, and those two are combined and given to C1. So from first input to first output, my generating function is D plus D square, right? Similarly, now first input to second output. Now if I go from first input to second output from the upper branch, you have only this connection which is contributing to C2 from this input, and that is output of the second flip-flop. So it is only D square. So G12 is D square. Now when I go from 1 to 3, what will be G13? G13 is, see this is the line which is coming from first input section or from the upper circuit. So it is D plus D square again, and that is going to C3. So G13 is D plus D square. Now I talk about G21. Now from 2 to 1, how do I go? Now if I look at the lower circuit, for C1, this arrow is contributing to C1 and it is directly the output coming from the second flip-flop. There is no first flip-flop involved, there is no input involved. So this is directly D square. So G21 is D square. Now if I go for G22, is second input, right, is getting contribution from this, and this is the arrow which is contributing, which is coming from this particular flip-flop. So only D, no second flip-flop is involved, no input is involved, so it is only D. Similarly G23, so G23 is directly this line which is again a D. So these are the 6 generating functions, right? It's very easy. Don't get confused with the diagram. Just see from that particular input, how do I reach to output, right? Again I repeat, suppose I'm taking the first case. I want I1 to C1, right? C1, and I want I1. So I1 is the part of the upper circuit. There are two circuits. One is the upper circuit, one is the lower circuit. So I1 is the part of upper circuit. So how do I go from I1 to C1? So it is D, which is coming to this XOR gate, and D square. So D plus D square is coming to C1, right? So I can have multiple inputs, I can have multiple outputs, and number of inputs into number of outputs will be your total generating functions. Let's take one more example here. Now again, how many generating functions you expect? 2 inputs and 3 outputs. So 2 cross 3, 6 generating functions, right? Now K1 and K2. This first row corresponds to K1 and the second row corresponds to K2. So again, very simple. I want K1 to N1, K1 to N2, K1 to N3. Similarly, we want K2 to N1, K2 to N2 and K2 to N3. So let's take K1 to N1. So K1 is directly coming to N1. It is not coming through any of the delays. So K1 is directly connected to N1. So it is 1. Now when I talk about K1 to N2, there is no connection from K1 to N2. It is not even coming from any of the delay elements. This N2 is directly coming from K2. So there is no connection between K1 to N2. So which is 0. And now K1 to N3. K1 to N3. So you refer this arrow. So it is K1 which is coming here, which is 1. Then it is D here, right? Delay of 1. Then D square is not in picture, and you have D cube. So D cube, because this K1 is coming here, then the K1 is delayed and it is coming here. K1 is delayed one more time but no connection. K1 is delayed one more time. So total 3 delay. So this is D cube plus D plus 1. So K1 to N3 is 1 plus D cube, right? Similarly, now you refer K2 to N1. There is no K2 to N1 connection, so it is 0. Now K2 to N2, its direct connection, which is 1, and there is again no connection from K2 to N3. So K2 to N3 is 0. So again, this is 2 by 3 encoder, 2 inputs, 3 outputs. So how many total generating functions? 6 generating functions. So in short, we can conclude that the convolutional encoder can have number of inputs simultaneously, and it can also have number of outputs simultaneously, right? So these are 2 different types of encoders. Now let's come to the next important point, which is very critical point, which is error correcting ability of the given convolutional encoder. So we have seen cyclic codes, we have also seen linear block codes, and we know that error detection ability of LBC or cyclic is D min minus 1, and error correcting ability is D min minus 1 by 2. Now in case of convolution encoder, we have a terminology which is called D free. It is not D min, which is D free, that is the minimum free distance, right? But the equation is similar. TC is D free minus 1 by 2 and TD is D free minus 1. Now to understand this, let's first see what is D free. Pay attention, because this is very important topic. So it is the Hamming weight of the shortest path which diverts from all zero path and merges back to all zero path, right? Let's take that you have A and you are moving along A. That means you are receiving 0, you go from A to A. Again you receive 0, you go from A to A with output 0 0. Again you receive 0. So this is the all zero path. Now you can have number of paths which divert from all zero path. So in this path you are going from A to B, you are coming back from B to C, then you are going from C to D and coming back to A. You can also go from A to B, you can go from B to C, you might go from C to back to B and again B to C and to A. So you can have number of such paths which will move away from all zero path, but it will re-merge to all zero path. and during this transition you calculate how many number of ones you get as outputs. So when I go from A to B, I am assuming that your output is 0 1. When you go from B to C, let's see the output is 1 1. So how many number of ones I get for this path? 1, 1 plus 2 3, 3 plus 1 4, 4 plus 2 6. So this particular path has weight of 6. Now you can have number of such paths if this is the shortest path. So in this case your D free will be 6. Shortest in the sense you might have another path but which has 7 number of ones during the transition. You may have another path which can have 8 number of ones in the transition. So you calculate all such paths, and for each path you calculate number of ones you get when you go along that particular path and when you come back to A. And minimum value of number of ones, the path which will give you that value is the shortest path, and those number of total ones is your D free. Now obviously the question is, if you have a bigger convolutional encoder or even if you have a simple convolutional encoder, how many such paths we need to verify? So we will see a concept of transfer function to calculate D free, but later on I am going to give you a trick. If you have a small state diagram or you have a small convolutional encoder, not very complicated, then looking at the state diagram, how do I decide D free, right? So what is D free? D free is the minimum Hamming weight of the path, right? It is the shortest path which will move away from all zero path and which will come back to all zero path, and you calculate number of ones. Those number of ones total becomes your D free. Now let's take our own example. This is the state diagram. Which convolution encoder I am referring? I am referring to this convolution encoder, right? Now let's see how I am calculating D free from this. So this is the transfer function diagram. Let's first understand this diagram. This is A0 and this is A1. Actually this is state A only and this is state A only, but I am moving away from A and I am coming back to A. So just to avoid confusion, I am splitting A into two different symbols, A0 and A1. Otherwise this is the same state A, right? Now see this diagram. It's very important, it's simple, but please understand. So when you go from A to B, when I go from A to B, see how it is constructed. I get two numbers of 2 ones. So I am writing that as D square, assuming that D is the distance between the two states. So what is the distance between two states? In terms of output I am calculating. So I am getting 2 ones, so it is D square, right? Now when I go from B to D, right? When I go from B to D, how many ones I am getting? 1 1, because my output is 0 1, so that is 1. So it is D. When I remain in D, what is the output? 1 0. So when you remain in D, again it is D. So in short, this capital D indicates actually number of ones which are present when you go from one state to another. Now when you go from D to C, you are again getting 1 0 1, so there is again 1 1, so it is again D. Now when you go from C to B, you don't get any ones, so it is just indicated by a feedback loop, and this is output is 1, right? Whenever I have 1, I represent that with D. Now this one indicates that there are no ones present in this particular loop. So when I go from C to B, there is no 1, my output is 0 0, so it is just a connection from C to B, so it is indicated by 1. And when I go from C back to A, my output is 1 1, so again I am getting 2 ones, so from C back to A it is D square. So once again I repeat, I start with A to B. When I go from A to B, 2 ones, which is a D square. When I go from B to C, again in 1 0 there is only 1 1, so D. From B to D, my output is 0 1, again D. When I remain in D, my output is 1 0, again D, because there is again only single 1 present. When I go from D to C, again I get single 1, which is D. And when I go from C to A, I have D square. Now what is expected is we want a transfer function which is a1 upon a0. If I go from a1 upon a0 with all this expanded distances, expanded state diagram, what will be my transfer function? So let's calculate. I calculate node B. So what is node B? It is d square into a0. I am coming from a0 to b. So d square into a0 plus c. If I focus on this node B, it is d square into a0 plus c. Right? Now if I calculate node C, it is d into b plus, I am getting second arrow here, which is d into d. So what is node C? How I reach to node C? From B we have one arrow, from D I have another arrow. So b into d plus d into d. If similarly if I calculate this node, right, how do I get? For this node there are two arrows, one which goes from B to D and one which is from D to D. So again d into b plus d into d. So if I compare this, equation 2 and 3 are identical, so I can say that C is equal to D. Right? And lastly a1, what is a1? D square into C. This is what I get. Now let's focus on this equation, d square into C. So d square into C is a d square into, I substitute value of C from this equation. So it is dB plus dd. So what is a1? D square C. So what is d square C? D square into value of C, dB plus dd. So d square into d is d cube. So d cube b plus d cube d. So d square C is d cube into b. What is b? B is from this equation. So d square a0 plus c plus d cube d, right, which is d raised to 5 a0 plus d cube c plus d cube d. But from this we know c is equal to d. So d cube c plus d cube d, I can write 2 d cube c because c is same as d. Right? Now if I bring this d cube c on the left hand side, I get d square c into 1 minus 2d. It is d square c minus 2 d cube c, which is this equation, is equal to d raised to 5 a0. And what we ultimately want is the ratio a1 by a0. But what is d square c here? a1. So it is a1 into 1 minus d, which is d raised to 5 a0. So what is a1 upon a0? d raised to 5 upon 1 minus 2d. Right? So I expanded this, I substituted different values, and we get d raised to 5 upon 1 minus 2d. So what is d raised to 5 upon 1 minus 2d? If you calculate this using division, it is d raised to 5 plus 2d raised to 6 plus 4d raised to 7 and so on up to 2 raised to k d raised to k plus 5. See, this is 0. So when I write 2 raised to 0, k is equal to 0. So when k is equal to 0, 2 raised to 0 is 1 and this is d raised to 5, that is first term. So this is in general the value of terms. When I write k is 1, which is 2, 2 raised to 1 is 2 and 1 plus 5 is 6, so I am getting this. Right? So what I am getting is a1 by a0 is this particular value. So why we did this? That is the biggest question. And what is the interpretation of this? Now comes the interpretation, which is very, very important. So what is the coefficient of d raised to 5? 1 actually. So it indicates you have one path of 5 ones. This 5 indicates number of ones. Right? If I write d, it is 1 1. If I write d square, 2 number of ones. So 5 number of ones. We are trying to find out what? D free. What is d free? You calculate all the paths which move away from all zero path and remerge to it, and you calculate number of ones in the transition. The path which will give me the smallest number of ones is my d free. The value of number of ones is d free. So I have one path which will give me 5 ones. I have 2 paths which will give you 6 ones. You have 4 paths which will give you 7 ones. So what is the minimum number of 1? 5. So what is d free? 5. So what is error correcting ability? 2 bits. D free minus 1 by 2. Now whatever we are doing can be done easily with the help of state diagram. This is the state diagram of the encoder which we are discussing. Let's verify whatever I am saying. Now what we want? You have state A0. You are supposed to move away from A0. That is, you move away from state A. You revolve in this, you just have multiple transitions and you come back to this state. And how many such possibilities are possible, and you calculate number of ones. So let's do that. I can go from A to B, I can go from B to D, I can go from D to C, I can come from C to A. One possibility. I can go from A to B, I can go from B to C, I can go from C to B, again I can go from B to C and C to A, or I can go from A to B, B to C and C to A. So just see which is the minimum number of one giving path. If I go from A to B, I have to move away from A. So if I go from A to B, 2 ones, so calculate it, count is 2. From B to C, 1 1, so 2 plus 1 3, and from C to A, 3 plus 2 5. Is there any other path which will give you 5 ones? No. So if I go from A to B, 2 number of ones, B to C 1 1, C to A 2 1, so total number of ones are 5. So it is one path of 5 ones. Now why 2 paths of 6 ones? Just see, A to B, right, one path, B to C another path, C back to B, B back to C and C to A. So A to B, how many ones? 2. B to C 1, so 2 plus 1 3. C back to B, no one. Again B to C 1, so 3 plus 1 4, 4 plus 2 6, that is one path. Or A to B 2, B to D, again 1 1, so 2 plus 1 3, D to C 1 4, 4 plus 2 6. So you have 2 paths of 6 ones, which is 4. Take one of the paths of 7 ones, A to B 2, B to D 2 plus 1 3, you remain in D 3 plus 1 4, then you go from D to C 4 plus 1 5 plus 2 7. So that is the most important interpretation. How did we do that? We just calculated all the paths moving away from state A and coming back to state A, and the path which will give you minimum number of ones, the count of ones in this path is your D free. So I got one path of 5 ones, so my D free is 5. You don't want number of paths, you want a number of ones of the shortest path. So your D free is 5. So what is the more technical way to calculate D free? Using the concept of transfer function. I split the state into 2 parts, A0 and A1, so as to have movement away from A and coming back to A, and just solve the transfer function. You get A1 by A0 using this expression. The minimum value of ones is the first term, which is your D free, right? And as I mentioned, if your state diagram is fairly simple like this, then you can just calculate what is your D free, right? So it just to revise it, just take another example, the typical encoder which we have discussed. You have calculated this encoder, right? So what is the D free of this encoder, right? How do I calculate D free of this encoder? Just go to the state diagram. This is original state, move away from it and then come back. So I have to go away from this, so I will go away from this. So when I move away from this, I come to S1. How many number of ones I get? 2 number of ones, and then I have to come back. So when I come back, you have another one. So how many total ones I am getting? 3 ones. There is possibility I go from S0 to S1, I remain in S1 and then I come back, but in that case you will get 4 number of ones, 2 here, 1 here and 1 in this transition. But we want minimum number of ones, so S0 to S1 and S1 back to S0. So number of ones is 3. So for this encoder, what is D free? D free is 3. So how many errors it can correct? 3 minus 1 by 2. So this particular encoder can correct only 1 bit of error in the received code word, and this particular encoder which we have discussed can correct 2 bits of error in the received code word. So if you have a code word which you have transmitted and you receive it with 2 bits of error maximum, then this can correct, right? So just go through the video once. I hope you have understood this. So in this particular video we have covered the representations, and we have seen a very critical concept of convolution encoder, that is D free, because it is going to decide error correcting ability, and we have seen how we can decide what is D free, right? Hope you have enjoyed this video. The further video of Viterbi decoding will be following soon, right? So just go through this video. I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you very much.